How do we respond to someone who says happy birthday to us, Shaykhuna? Is it permissible to respond with the same or any sort of greeting?
Thank you. They haven't offended you. Just say thank you.
Say thank you.
Point is that you either celebrate birthdays or you don't. That is
Yeah,
entirely a matter of personal choice and custom.
yeah,
Again, I'm going to go back to this whole thing about how we frame questions and how
mm,
ulama tend to deal with them, right? The relevant
yeah,
question here is it permissible in Sharia? And in that regard, there's a difference of opinion. Some people treat it, it's very connected to our first question, actually. Some people treat it as something that is alien to Islam to the extent of being impermissible because people only celebrate birthdays out of imitation of others.
yes, yep,
However, ulama, when looking at this carefully and looking at the views of ulama in this regard, we find that actually where the Prophet ﷺ told us, "Man tashabbaha biqawmin fahuwa minhum," whoever imitates the people, he is from among them. The hadith is actually qualified on the basis of religious symbols that where we imitate people on something that is a religious distinction, a religious characteristic of theirs. This is where tashabbuh is blameworthy. But if, for example, we have assimilated certain cultural aspects of say the UK, right, that aren't religiously symbolic, religiously significant, they're just part and parcel of culture, right? For example, you know, uh, going to the sales or participating in certain types of parties, etc., because it's just something people in this country do that it doesn't have any religious symbolism, then such things are are mubah to do. So, for example, I don't celebrate my birthday, right? Sometimes it doesn't even occur to me that it's my birthday because I've been brought up without this in my life, right? And therefore, I don't see it as something that is customary to me, but I acknowledge that it's customary to people in this country. Therefore, my children, they kind of feel like their birthday should be celebrated because all their friends are celebrating their birthdays. Now, this I look upon as something that is permissible to do. The Sharia is neutral about it, provided that we don't break rules such as, israf and extravagance and things like that. That these things are not for the sake of ostentation, etc. If it's just to have an occasion to give gifts to our children and to make them happy and so on, then there is principally nothing wrong with it. The kind of celebrations that are impermissible in Sharia are the ones that are collective celebrations, right? That would that would rival something like Eid. A birthday is an individual's own celebration. I can choose to celebrate my graduation, for example. The Sharia would have no opinion on it. Does that make sense?
mm,
Now, I recognize that some ulama say that it isn't permissible. Now, if you follow those ulama, right, then by all means, that's not a problem. Now, if somebody says to you, happy birthday, although at least you should recognize that the intention behind that is not to offend you. And for that reason, I think for you to simply say thank you should be sufficient, even if you considered it to be impermissible. As for if you consider it to be permissible and mubah, then it's a non-issue. Does that make
Shaykhana,
sense?
I feel like because we've talked about this previously when you came into the studio as well. This concept of imitation, and also you're talking from a perspective of what the Sharia says is mubah, it's just permissible, it's neither here or there. But what's interesting, I feel like, and I would like your thoughts on this actually, just a follow up question on that from my observation is that should we view the lens of our decisions more on the framework of the Sharia and how the Sharia works. If we are, if we take it to that level from the general masses, then we would perhaps be less here or we would be less like here or there. We'd be very much. Our focus and our direction on our choices would be very much like would be more understanding of the nuances and it'd be more balanced in terms of our decision making. Do you understand what I'm trying to say, Shaykhuna? Do you feel like we should, as a community, make movements towards this a mature way of understanding the Sharia? So we perhaps, for example, look, if I understood that birthdays were like, for example, I they were mubah, but me myself, I don't see any worth in the concept of a birthday because I appreciate for what it stands for in the context of our society, but I don't see value in it. Do you think that's something we should inculcate in our society and our community and our global Muslim ummah to just appreciate the need to go back to the Sharia in terms of our understanding?
Yeah. Well, there's two things to it, right? Firstly, the maturity entails being understanding the Sharia in a way that that accommodates that big space in the middle that is known as the permissible. That when it comes to the permissible, there's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of leeway. There's a lot of space for maneuver. So that's the first thing. Sometimes what is permissible to some isn't permissible to others. That's where we move into the question of difference of opinion. Here too, maturity is required if the difference of opinion is in something where where there is scope for difference of opinion. And that, by the way, is the majority of jurisprudence, the majority of fiqh, right? So that maturity is necessary. That maturity on matters of difference of opinion is lacking at the moment in the community, right?
Mm.
But what is required though is education, a kind of an education that teaches people how the Sharia works, as you mentioned, right? So the third thing is maturity where people's individual choices are respected if they fall within the mubah. For example, I shouldn't have to worry about being judged if I don't celebrate birthdays and haven't brought my children up to celebrate birthdays because I don't associate any meaning to it. I don't associate any meaning to it. I don't associate any value to it, but rather I'm trying to keep my children oriented towards the akhirah and so on. The maturity here requires for other people not to judge me for somehow depriving my children, but also for me not to judge people who do celebrate birthdays for just a bit of innocent fun. So there's different
Yeah.
aspects to the maturity question. Maturity is really about being more concerned about you and where you stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and less concerned about other people's actions and less judgmental towards other people's actions, unless what they are doing is either publicly harmful
Mm.
or something that is reprehensible in the Sharia,
Yeah.
kind of absolutely, right? Meaning without any scope, without any room for
Yeah.
maneuver. There's no difference of opinion. It's a, they are lying, they are backbiting,
Mm.
they are committing zina, etc.
Yep.
There's no difference of opinion in these matters. These are absolute. These are what we call essentials of the religion,
Mm.
right? And I think those are the things that we need to focus on. Other areas where there's difference of opinion, areas that
Yeah.
are in the realm of permissibility, people should be left alone, right? And we should be more concerned about ourselves. Your standard of piety is personal to you. You can't use that to judge another person. Our teachers used to say this really, really cool line, right? They used to say that fatwa, meaning the question of fiqh, fatwa is always um, sorry, when we answer people's questions, we always answer them on the basis of fatwa, not on the basis of taqwa. That's what they say, right?
Mm.
What that basically means is we consider the principles of the Sharia in all of its breadth. We don't give opinions on the basis of standards of taqwa. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I
Meaning,
understand. Yeah.
therefore, I can't give an opinion based on the questioner's standard of scrupulousness or society's assumptions about what is pious behavior.
Mm.
I have to give the opinion on the basis of what is permissible or impermissible in the Sharia. Those conversations exist in, say, spiritual circles,
Yeah.
right? Or circles of nasiha and so on.